Yo, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another shoe review of mine. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you guys are all doing well. Today, I have a pair of sneakers, or at least a colorway, that hasn't seen the light of day since 1991. So this makes for a really special video. It's definitely been a long time coming. Really excited to add these to the stash. This is just another OG I can add to my collection. So couldn't be happier, and I hope that if you have any doubts in your mind about this pair, this video will help clear it up. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm actually going to start off with the box, which is something I usually do not do, but for this specific release I thought it was worth talking about, considering that Nike has made the effort to recreate the OG style 90s box that these came in originally, and I do think that they did a really good job. So let's get right into it. Let's toss these aside for like a minute and just get into that box. So of course, it being a 180 release, they come in this special style box with the 180 on the top. Well, half of it on the top, one half of it on the side. You have the Nike Air moniker right here, and here when you lift off the box, you have the very famous Nike sports shoes, and they're manufactured to the exact specifications, blah blah blah. This very famous quote they've been using for a long time now. And on the side you have this Nike logo and the size tag. Now, two things I'll say. Although I'm very happy that with this retro and how it came out, I still have to mention the few differences that there are with the OGs. Now, the first difference I will have to say is the box is a lot bigger. Back then the boxes were a lot more narrow. I can't give you like an exact size because I've never really had an OG box, but let's just say it ended like right here, so they were a lot more narrow. There's definitely a few more inches of space, of extra space to store your sneakers, which is not a bad thing. I'm actually pretty happy. It just makes for easier storage. So that's one difference. And the second difference is that this logo, although it looks OG, it wasn't on the original box. Back then, the OG logo that was there was the international logo, the Nike International logo, which you're going to see on the insole of the 180s, which I'm going to show you very soon. But just two key differences I thought I'd highlight. The official name on these is going to be the Nike Air 180, which is also something I wanted to talk about. These were never called the Air Max 180. These were always called the Air 180. But what I'll have to say is that a lot of people, including myself, consider these to be part of the Air Max lineage and Air Max product line, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But me personally, I'm going to refer to these as the Air 180s. So if you're one of those people that calls these the Air Max 180s, hey, that's cool, you do you. I don't care, but just so you know, on my video, I'm going to call these the Air 180s just because that's what they originally called back then. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm first off going to talk about the history, and I'm going to talk about the materials and the colorway and all that good stuff like I usually do, and we'll pretty much wrap it up from there. So let's just set these up really nicely so you guys can have a good look. Now, these came out, it was 1991. They were designed in collaboration, which is probably the coolest part about this shoe. It's the collaboration between two designers, two pioneers of air technology. You have, first off, Bruce Kilgore, which, if you didn't know, designed the Air Force One back in 1982, which was the first basketball sneaker to utilize air technology. And Tinker Hatfield, which was the first man to allow the world a visible view on the air unit back in 1986 with the Air Max 1, of course. And of course, Tinker Hatfield went on to produce many of the OG emblematic sneakers of the 90s, and these just happen to be one of them. So these were made in collaboration between these two designers, which I think is the coolest part about these. Like I said, you got two icons of Nike era technology teaming up, and that's their baby. I just think it's so cool. And back in 1991, I guess the whole Nike Air thing was to make it bigger every year, because back in 91 you had already gotten the Air Max 1, the Air Max Lite or the Air Max 2, and in 1990 you had the Air Max 3 or the Air Max 90, and then you had the BWs, which stands for big window, if you didn't know. So that was already one shoe in 91 that had a bigger window than everything else that we had seen before it, which was the whole marketing thing, the BW, the big window. And I guess that didn't work out how they wanted, because later in the year they came out with these, the Air 180, which had apparently a 50% bigger bubble than what they previously had before, which is crazy when you think about it. And not only that, but they also had 180 air, so that means that you could have seen the air bubble through the outsole, which apparently back then was really like a marvel of engineering and technology, and people were going crazy for it. You know, I can only imagine, you know, like being a smaller kid, you know, back then, just being mesmerized by it. I mean, dude, I'm like 24 and I still think it's super cool how you can see the technology, although it's an old ancient technology. I just think it's super cool even all these years later. And yeah, so that was kind of like the whole shebang of the shoe, you know, the whole like bigger window, bigger air bubble, and you can see the air bubble 180 degrees. That was like the main selling point of this shoe back in 1991. But let's get into the materials real quick. They're not that special. I'm just going to warn you right now, if you're expecting premium materials, that's not going to be the shoe for you. You got to keep in mind, Nike right now is trying to recreate these as close to the OG as possible, which means, you know, back then they were made as a performance running shoe, which means that they're going to utilize, first off, breathable materials, and not only that, but synthetic materials as well, just for the lightweight aspect of everything, and other reasons, I guess. I don't know where I was going with this, but definitely lightweight reasons. Because it's not for the ability to clean, because these are known as dust magnets. If you didn't know, you got to be real careful around these. Definitely got to spray these up with some spray. But yeah, back then, you know, they utilize synthetic materials, because that was what was made for performance back then. You know, it's just better suited for performance than like full grain leather, for example. So just keep that in mind. You got this like micro suede right here, which, as you can see, is already collecting dust everywhere, and these have only been sitting for like 30 minutes on the table. But yeah, you got this sort of like neoprene / like nylon material on the toe right here, which is super breathable. You have this mesh on the side, which is really breathable as well. You can see my whole finger through it. Right here you have a synthetic piece of leather. It's really thin. There's not much going on, nothing special. And one material I really like, I guess it's the same thing as here, but at the back, this like sort of like material, this has like this sheen to it, this like satin type material. It's really cool. It's like on every Air Max in the 80s and the 90s, like at least the early 90s. I just think it's such a cool looking material. Like, it reflects the light very well and just looks super cool, in my opinion. It's just a small little detail. And another part that's really cool about the 180s is like the construction of the upper. You have sort of like this Hirachi, or at least it's reminiscent of the Hirachi line, the booty-like construction. So you have this like sock-like piece, and the upper is sewn onto it, and it really hugs your foot. And another thing I think is really cool is that they did the effort to put the OG tag on the tongue. As you can see, size 10.5, my true size, and I do recommend going true to size on these. Don't do anything different. Maybe if you have really wide feet, maybe go half up a size, but I would suggest trying them on. So you have the regular size label on the side, like, I don't know where it is, maybe right here? I don't know, but I know it's somewhere. You have like two size labels. You have the OG one and you have the other one on this side, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, just a really cool thing that they added. Up there would have been the production date back in the day, where it says FJ. It would have started off with the production year, which was 91, I guess, for these. And yeah, on the tongue, you have a much shorter tongue than previous retros. You have a sort of like rubberized feeling 180 logo on the tongue. And one thing I'm going to mention about the materials as well, I kind of forgot, is that, well, it's obvious, but just in case, you have sort of like this eggshell colored micro suede. It's not completely white, so just so you guys know, it's not a completely white shoe. It looks more like an eggshell or like a sail, just for your information. You have the midsole, and they completely retooled everything from the shape to the midsole. It's a lot bigger of an air unit from the previous retros. And you have the TPU hill counter right here. I tried these on for like a quick 10-15 minutes inside the crib. I gotta say, these are pretty comfortable. An OG feature that they have is that they are sort of like the air bubble. Is that a crack? Nah, I don't know. Can't tell. I'll check it out after. But one thing I've heard people say about these is that the air bubble is really stiff, which it is. As you can see, there's absolutely no compression, no give there, because it's actually surrounded by a urethane plastic, which is an OG feature from back in the day. It just makes for it just protects it from the elements a bit more. So not a bad thing at all, just a bit stiffer when it comes to like pressing down the air unit. But when it comes to like the actual comfort itself, maybe it's a bit stiffer than like say my Air Max 186s, you know. But I wouldn't say that much of a difference. I actually thought they were pretty comfortable, at least a lot more comfortable than the two other retros I had. I had the Ultramarines in 18, and I had the well, I still have them, the Crimsons, the Crimsons from like 2013. I hated the 2018 Ultramarines. They were so uncomfortable. They were so stiff. Terrible shoe, terrible shape, terrible construction. Everything was bad about those. But yeah, really happy about these, the way they came out. You got the Nike International, like I said, on the insole, and you got this really padded sock liner, which is great. I love good padding. It makes for a really comfortable ride. And of course, the very iconic Nike waffle outsole. I have no idea if I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. If I didn't, oh well, fuck it. But if you stayed until the end, you're gonna get to see a little comparison, because I have actually the Crimsons that I was just talking about. These are the 2013 version of the Air 180, and I'm not gonna go into like a whole deep dive, but you guys can just see how different they are. And back in the day, I thought I'd mention this as well. Back in the day, there were 5 or 6 colorways of the Air 180s. There was 2 women's colorway, which are these, which is kind of a funny coincidence when you think about it. There was the Crimsons, there was the clear turquoise, and there was also, of course, the Ultramarines. That's 3. Ultramarines are what everybody knows, what everybody thinks of, at least when they hear the 180 name. You had the Concords, Bright Ceramics, and the Hot Limes, which Hot Limes haven't retroed in a long time. I think the last time they came out was in 2005, but they need a retro because that's one of the cooler OG colorways in my opinion. And I've mentioned before in my Spirit On video, which is like probably my last video, I think, but sometimes Nike overlooks a lot of their colorways and like their legendary models. They overlook certain colorways, like for example, the Neon 95s. I've seen the Neon 95s a million fucking times. I am tired of that shoe. I seriously am. How about you bring me some other OG colorways like the Solar Reds or something? I don't know, man. Like anything but that, you know. And the Ultramarines have gotten so much publicity over the last few years, and like I said, this is the first time these release. These haven't seen a release since like 2013. This was the last retro, and the Ultramarine comes out like what seems like every 3 to 4 years, which is ridiculous. Enough of those, seriously. But little rant right there. I don't want to get too off topic, but I'm just gonna do a little as you can see, it's a totally different shoe at this point. The shape is totally different. The tongue is a lot higher on the 2013. It's like basically a shin guard, and the air bubble is way smaller, way smaller actually. And the shape on the toe, it's obviously a bit more rounded on the new ones, but the worst shape was the 2018s. They were disgusting. They had like a steel toe. These weren't too bad, but still a few differences. As you can see, the new ones aren't as wide. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see that, but yeah, just a few key differences. The whole shape is different. The back is a lot lower, and you're gonna have to excuse the condition of these. I sort of retired these a few years ago because they were a bit too small. These are a size 10. These are a 10.5. I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, these have definitely seen some better days. But just thought I'd compare these real quick for the sake of it. Oh yeah, and one other cool thing about these is that I just saw it. They have the OG size tag as well on the inside, which was an OG feature. So there we have it, guys. I'm gonna put these right here. A great shoe, that should be released more often in different colorways, which Nike is kind of starting to do that. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to it, but they're trying to push the 180s on like the common folk, I guess. And it's good to see, man. They've actually done some pretty nice colorways so far, I have to say. Other than the OGs, of course. I think they're not bad. But yeah, guys, this is pretty much going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching. This is one of my longer videos. I think 15 minutes. It's rare that they run for this long, but if you watched until the end, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing or liking the video. And yeah, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you guys when I see you. Take care of yourselves. Bye.